Good morning one and all. Now in today's class we'll be studying about the public sector enterprises. First let us see what is the meaning of public sector. Okay. Then afterwards we can see the nature of public sector enterprises. Overall you need to remember that public sector enterprises, these are owned and controlled by the government. Then afterwards in further classes we'll be studying about the private sector company also. Okay. First we'll understand the basic meaning of public sector, then its nature, advantages, disadvantages. Then afterwards we'll be studying about the private sector, its advantages and disadvantages. Then afterwards we'll be studying the differences between the public sector enterprises and private sector enterprises. So as I've told you that public sector enterprises, these are owned and controlled by the government, means government companies will be there, and it is a state ownership and operation of industrial, agricultural, financial and commercial undertakings. Now in this you need to remember these four parts which are there, that is industrial. Okay, means different industries it may be there, like it may be there the small scale industries or large scale industries. Okay, or agricultural also, means agro based industries which are only related to the agricultural sector. Then financial and commercial undertakings. Now after that we'll be studying about the nature of public sector enterprises. In that first one is state ownership and control. Means here these kind of industries, these are owned and controlled by the government. Then service motive. Usually what happens, what is the main objective or what is the main motto of any kind of industry? Profit making. So each and every industry want to earn more and more profit. But here in this case, what is the main motive or what is the main objective of public sector enterprises? That is service motive, means rendering the good services to the people. That is the main objective or that is the main motive of this public sector enterprises. Like normally what happens, what do you mean by rendering the services? Like a salesman, he will render the good services to the customer. Okay, like that way how the services have been rendered to the people. Now if the company will be only thinking about the objective that only they want to earn more and more profit, okay, now it may not be possible that all the time it is only profitable. Okay, the company can be profitable also, the company may come into loss also. So that is the main objective. But here in this case, in public sector enterprises, what is the main motive or what is the main objective of this sector? That is the service motive, means rendering good services to the people. Okay, like what happens, if the good services have been provided to the people, then the company will be satisfied. Okay, then next, financing from state exchequer. Means here how the different funds are been arranged, okay, or how the proper arrangement of the finance will be done. Then autonomous bodies with service motive, means it is a separate sector. Okay, means rendering the good services or providing the good services to the people. Then the next one is bureaucratic management. Now what do you understand by the term bureaucratic? Okay, this means what? The rules and regulations which have been applied. So here whatever are the rules been prescribed by the company, they need to follow properly those rules and regulation. Means whatever are the guidelines or whatever are the rules been set, okay, accordingly those rules or guidelines are to be followed. So this is all about the public sector enterprises. Then next part we can see about the private sector enterprises. As already I have told you that, okay, like first basically you understand the meaning of this public sector and the meaning of private sector. Then later on we can study about the differences between the public sector enterprises and the private sector enterprises. Now let us understand what do you mean by private sector enterprises. Now this kind of the industry, it is run by the private individuals or groups. It is not a government owned company. Means here we had seen in the public sector enterprises that it was owned and controlled by the government. But here in private sector enterprises, it is not owned and controlled by the government, it is run by the private individuals. And afterwards also you can see that the main objective or the main motive of this kind of the industry is profit making. So no need to get confused between the public sector and private sector. Okay, in public sector, what was the main objective? The main objective was service motive. Okay, and in private sector enterprises, the main motto or the main objective is what? Profit making. So based on that, we'll be studying about the nature of private sector enterprises. In that, the first one is private ownership and control. As I've told you that these kind of enterprises, these are owned by private individuals or groups. Now here in this point you can split as ownership and control. Okay, now what do you mean by ownership? Ownership means who is owning that particular industry. Okay, means here this kind of a private sector, it is owned by the people who want to run that particular industry. It need not be a single person or a single trader, as we have specified as it can be the individuals or groups. Okay, now here individual, it can be specified as a sole trader also, as a single trader. He want to start and establish his business, that is a sole trader. Sole trader means a single trader. Okay, so it need not be only a single trader running the industry. Apart from that, different kind of groups also will be there. Based on the formation of group can be done, and they can start running the business, or they can start running the industries. So now here ownership and control. Okay, now this kind of a industry is owned by the private parties or the private individuals which are there, and controlling also. The controlling of the industry is also being done by the private individuals. Then the second point you can see as profit making. Okay, now here only you can understand the basic difference between the public sector and private sector. In public sector, what was the main motive? Okay, objective, what was there? Service making. But here in private sector, you can see that the main motive or the main objective is what? Profit making. Okay, now here what happens? Normally what happens, the main objective of each and every organization is earning more and more profit. They want to be profitable. Okay, or they want to be run the topmost position. Okay, the industry should be at the topmost position, then having a goodwill, good name, brand reputation in the market. So these all things, expectations will be there by the industry. So that is profit making. The main objective of the company is the profit making. The next point is finance. Now here what do you mean by finance? How the funds or how the finance will be made available. Now here you can see that okay, the finance is made available with certain like loans will be there. Okay, issue of shares, debentures, and how the loan can be taken. The next one is management. Now here how it is managed by the public sector enterprises, how the management process will be done by the different private sector industries. And the last one is risk of loss. Now why there is risk of loss? If any loss will cause to the industry, okay, how the loss can be recovered or how the loss can be incurred. Now as I've told you, it need not be all the time that the company will be profitable. At times when it comes or incurs loss, how that loss can be recovered. Okay, like suppose if there is a loan or debt amount has to be payable. Now usually what happens, you just imagine that one example I'll give you, that a businessman, he want to set up the industry. Okay, he want to start his own industry, and what is the basic requirement for that? If suppose if you want to start your own business or own industry, what is the main basic requirement for that? Availability of finance. Okay, because without finance the industry cannot run. as the finance is the lifeblood of the organization. Okay, so finance is the most essential part in order to start any kind of the business. Okay, or if you want to start any kind of the industry. So here that much loss has been incurred. So suppose what happened, suppose if the company will face such kind of a losses, like suppose financial loss, okay, or the sales may come down, the sales will keep on declining, okay, they are not getting that much expected, means whatever expectation are there, availability of that much profit. Okay, so these all things are there, that much risk is being involved if they want to bear all such kind of the losses. Okay, so this is all about the private sector enterprises. Now both together you need to remember that, okay, public sector enterprises, these are owned and controlled by the government, means government owned companies, and it means state ownership and operation of industrial, agricultural, financial and commercial undertakings. Then we had studied about the nature of public sector enterprises, means state ownership and control. I told you the difference between ownership and control. Ownership means who is owning that particular industry and how controlling is being done. And service motive, the main objective of that particular industry is what? Rendering good services to the people. And it is an autonomous body and bureaucratic management, means certain guidelines or certain rules and regulations are being set, accordingly those rules and regulations are to be followed. Then when we see the private sector enterprises, these are owned, run and controlled by the private individuals or groups, means private parties. Okay, it can be the individual also or group of employees also. And then we had seen the nature of private sector enterprises. Okay, now here private ownership and control, then profit making. Here the main objective of the private sector enterprises is what? Earning profit. Okay, then from where the arrangement of finance is being done, because it is not so very easy task in order to set up or start your own industry. Means see here, first only we had studied in the qualities of entrepreneur, risk taking was there, that is the main quality which is being involved. So suppose if the entrepreneur is having that quality as a risk taker, he has to bear all such kind of the risk, means right from the stage of setting up or establishing the industry. Okay, then later on also whatever the problems or difficulties have been faced in the company, he need to bear all such kind of the risk. And management and also risk of loss, that much risk is been involved in order to bear such kind of the losses. So this is all about the public sector enterprises and private sector enterprises.